We'll get into our history a little bit later, but just to kick things off, as a neurosurgeon and as a neuroscientist, could you share with us your vision of the brain as an organ as it relates to what's possible there? I mean, I think most everyone understands that the brain is, along with the body, the seat of our cognition, feelings, our ability to move, etc., and that damage there can limit our ability to feel the way we want to feel or move the way we want to move. But surgeons tend to view the world a little bit differently than most because, as the not so funny joke goes, they like to cut and they like to fix and they like to mend, and they, in your case, have the potential to add things into the brain that don't exist there already. So how do you think about and conceptualize the brain as an organ, and what do you think is really possible with the brain that most of us don't already probably think about?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thinking about the brain as this 3-pound lump of meat trapped in a prison of the skull, it seems almost magical that it could create a human set of behaviors and a life merely from electrical impulses. When you start to see patients and see, say, a small tumor eating away at a little part of the brain, and see a very discrete function of that brain go down in isolation, you start to realize that the brain really is a collection of functional modules pinned together, duct taped together in this bone box attached to your head. And sometimes you see very interesting failure modes. So one of the most memorable patients I ever had was very early on in my training. I was down at UC San Diego and saw a very young guy who had just been in a car accident. We had operated on him. And, as is so often the case in neurosurgery, we had saved his life, potentially at the cost of quality of life. When he woke from surgery with bilateral frontal lobe damage, he had essentially no impulse control left. And so, we rounded on him after surgery, saw that he was doing okay to our, first guess at his health. And we continued on to see our other patients, and we were called back by his, 80-year-old recovery room nurse saying, "You've got to come see your patient right away, something's wrong." And we walk in to see him, and he points at his elderly nurse and says, "She won't have sex with me." And, it was apparent at that moment his frontal lobes were gone, and that person is never going to have reasonable human behavior again. That's, it's one of the most tragic ways to have a brain malfunction. But, anything a brain does, anything from control of hormone levels in your body to vision, to sensation, to, the most obvious thing, which is muscle movement of any kind, from eye movement to moving your bicep, all that comes out of the brain. All of it can go wrong. Any of it, any part of it or all of it. Working with the brain is the substance of the brain as a surgeon, very high stakes. But, once in a while you get a chance to really help. You get a chance to fix something that seems unfixable. And you have, Lazarus-like miracles, not too uncommonly. So it's extremely satisfying as a career.
Could you share with us one of the more satisfying experiences?
Sure.
Or perhaps the top contour of what qualifies as satisfying in neurosurgery?
Yeah. One of the relatively newer techniques that we do is, if someone comes in with a reasonably small tumor somewhere deep in the brain that's hard to get to, the traditional approach to taking that out would involve cutting through a lot of good normal brain and disrupting a lot of neurons, a lot of white matter, that, kind of the wires connecting neurons. The modern approach involves a 2-millimeter drill hole in the skull down which you can pass a little fiber optic cannula and attach it to a laser and just heat the tumor up deep inside the brain under direct MRI visualization in real time. So this person is in the MRI scanner. You're taking pictures every second or so as the tumor heats up. You can monitor the temperature and get it exactly where you want it, where it's going to kill all those tumor cells, but not hurt hardly any of the brain surrounding it. And so not uncommonly nowadays, we have someone come in with a tumor that previously would have been catastrophic to operate on, and we can eliminate that tumor with, leaving a poke hole in their skin with almost no visual after effects.
So that procedure that you just described translates into better clinical outcomes, meaning fewer, let's call them side effects or collateral damage.
Exactly right. Yeah. We don't, even in cases that previously would have considered totally inoperable, say a tumor in the brain stem or a tumor in primary motor cortex or primary verbal areas, Broca's area, where we would have expected to either not operate or do catastrophic damage, those people sometimes now are coming out unscathed.